The birth of Samson. In the last story, Insights, about Jephthah, I divided this whole time period into 3 equal parts, each of them having 20 years. Now I had rounded that off, a kind of an average. But in there, I talk about how the middle 20 years was the time of apostasy. And the third 20 years was a time of a slow revival. Now, remember what I've said in the past, that the writers of the Bible are never concerned about chronological order. That's just not important to them. They would rather run one line of thinking all the way through until it's done, and then come back and pick up another one. Many illustrations of this in the Bible. But this time period right here has to be the most vivid of all of them. In this middle time period, the Bible history divides into 3 parts. The first part was before now, which it talks about Jephthah and how he fights against the Ammonites. And then it continues on with, after he dies, there are 3 more judges that follow him, which take you to the end of the third time period. Now it's come back to this middle section right here, time of apostasy. And with this we have the birth of Samson, which is what this story is right here. And then it'll continue on through his entire life, taking us to the end of that third time period. And then it'll come back. It'll come back and talk about Samuel. It'll talk about Eli and Hannah and Samuel and the Ark of God, and it'll go throughout that third time period again until the end. All of it comes together at the Battle of Ebenezer. Very important battle. And at that point, all 3 time periods come together, and it continues on as one history again. Well, just to review real quick here, in this middle time zone, we have very important things happening. First of all, Jephthah's half-brothers reject him, send him off, and he becomes a leader of a bunch of thugs. But he's brought back to give Israel victory over the Ammonites, and he becomes a judge. At this very same time, we have the birth of Samson, and finally the birth of Samuel. To understand this story and the stories that are come, you kind of have to understand about the geography of the land. It's kind of like my fist right here. There's a ridge that goes down through the middle of Israel. At the top of these mountain peaks right here, you have very important cities. You have Hebron and Bethlehem and Jerusalem and Bethel and many other cities across this top ridge. Over on the east side, that's the area that is more of a wilderness, more barren, going down to the Jordan River and the Dead Sea. On the west side, you have the green side, and this goes down to a plain, a very fertile plain, and finally the Mediterranean. This area over here is called the Shephelah. The Shephelah has 6 major valleys. And these valleys, all kinds of Israel history happens there. Now the Philistines are in this plain, Israel's up at the top, so there's this pushing down the valley and the pushing back up. There's this conflict that happens in these 6 valleys between the Philistines and Israel. One of these valleys is the Zorek, where the Zorek River runs down. All of the Samson stories happen in this one valley. Now, when Joshua divided up the land and gave it to the people, he gave this valley to the Danites, the tribe of Dan. Very fertile. It was a good inheritance. But now the Philistines rule. And so they push up this valley, and they push the Danites up. They push them up to the top part, which is a rocky part, more of cliffs and not very fertile. And they've taken over the entire valley. And that's where this story happens. many of the Danites leave. And that's in a future story, but they leave this area, go all the way to the north of Israel, to an area which later became known as Dan. But for now, this story happens right up at the top of this valley. So Samson is born here and he's raised looking down this valley. He's looking down at the valley that was given to him and his people. But the Philistines now have it. They have all this fertile soil. He sees all the grain and everything, and it's not his. And so the stories happen of him going down this valley and fighting against the Philistines. Come back when we give you more story insights, more insights on Samson stories.